maybe 50 seconds it will be active. Yeah. Done. So we are dot on time, Madhu and coordinator. So please, yeah, sure.
So we begin?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning and a warm welcome to one and all. And good evening to Kavita ji, who's here joined from Canada. And good afternoon to our friends from Australia, Rob, Harle, Janie, and Nathalie. And a very good morning to all our friends from India. We have gathered here on a virtual platform from different parts of the globe for the book launch of renowned poet and professor Saeed Ali Hamid's poetry collection, The Alchemy of Aging, and the collection of critical essays on poetry edited by Professor Jaydeep Sarangi, Explorations in English Poetry. Both these books have been published by Authorspress, and we are delighted to have the CEO of Authorspress, Sri Sudarshan K ji with us. And to bring the event alive and intellectually stimulating and receptive, we have with us today a grand ensemble. Our chief guest for the day is Sri J.V.G. Prasad. We have with us Sudarshan K ji, Professor Ranu Uniyal from Lucknow, and Professor Sudhir K. Arora from Moradabad to speak on the books and read their poems. We are extremely delighted to have our friends from overseas, Srimati Kavita Ezekiel, Rob Harle, Janie Conway, and Nathalie Buckland to share their views about the books and also to read their poems. So, without further delay, I invite my co-coordinator and friend, Aditi Rudra, to inaugurate the event with a traditional song in Bengali. So, over to you, Aditi.
A very warm and hearty welcome. So today I'm going to sing a Ravindra Sangeet, which is a traditional song. It is about exploring our inner soul, inner light. চোখের আলোয় দেখেছিলেন চোখের বাহিরে অন্তরে আজ দেখব যখন আলোক নাহিরে চোখের আলো দেখেছিলেন চোখের বাহিরে. So it's about that we have seen the entire world with our own eyes. Now it's time to look inwards towards our soul. So rightly said, today we are going to inaugurate two books, eminent writers, and we are going to look towards our soul. This inner light is going to lighten the entire world, and what a delight. We have the entire world with us, from Australia, from Canada, and obviously from India. So without wasting much of our time, let us begin with today's program. Yes, now we begin with our very own chief guest, who needs no introduction at all. So I invite J.G.V. Prasad ji, who is a poet, novelist, and translator. He's also a foodie and feels that his most satisfying publication so far is his South Indian vegetarian kitchen. In his previous avatar, he was professor of English at Jawaharlal Nehru University. I invite you, sir, to say a few words.
Thank you. That was read from the blurb of the last book, the latest book I did, which was a collection of Ambe's short stories, which I recommend to everybody, not just because I translated it, but because they're actually great stories. Having said that, when I was asked by both So I met Professor Hamid and Jaydeep to be part of this launch. I was thrilled because I like reading Professor Hamid's poetry, and Jaydeep has always impressed me with this go-getting attitude, can be done and must be done attitude. And I said, all right, I'd love to be part of this. But then I think a little cold feet on both our parts, because I think I've got to read the books first properly. And yesterday I was reading the books, and my wife said, what are you doing? Why are you studying as if you're studying for an exam? I said, I've got to launch these books tomorrow. And she said, who needs to read books to launch them? Why are you worried? And I said, that's true. Why am I worried? Because they're friends and I need to impress friends all the time. And then, Jaydeep rang me up and said, sir, tomorrow, I hope you know what you're going to be doing. I said, yeah, I'll be speaking about the books. He said, no, don't talk about the books. Don't talk about the books. Talk in general. Say whatever you want. Talk in general. And I said, I'm a foot soldier. I don't know how to talk in general. I do specifics. And so we had a good laugh about it. And he said, do what you want, but maybe you should read your poems and be done with it. Just leave the books to us. You don't take on that role. And I was like, oh, okay, if you say so. And so if I seemingly speak in, parts, something specific, but most in general, it's because of the way I've been prepped for this, inaugural, this launch. So, all right. Let me start with Professor Hamid's poetry, simply because we are similar in our age. We're in the same age bracket. So our age, in terms of number of years of both life experience in life and experience in academics, we match each other. And his concerns very often, obviously, in terms of age and where you are, match my, his contemporaries, my own. For example, and the book that I just translated of Ambais, it's also has a lot of stories about aging, about things that concern you as you age, even in terms of, as Professor Hamid points out, in terms of love, in terms of, companionship, in terms of, these are concerns that don't leave you, but they change color as you age. And what you expect of each other, what you expect of people around you, things get a little more clearly, perhaps get certain an edge as you age. So I was reading his poetry, and I was kind of, as usual, when I read Hamid Saab's poetry, I'm always saying, yeah, right, he's got it. And so and he ends with ghazals, and I was looking at the ghazals and I was saying, ooh, he's also showing his mastery, where he's reached, and how easy, it never comes easy, but how easy he can make poetry look, writing look, right? So these are, things that arose as I was in my mind as I was reading his poetry. I was looking at Jaydeep's book, and I said, how far we come. Because when people started in independent India, when people started taking Indian English poetry seriously, this is being taken seriously by Indian English poets, of course, and they started anthologizing for Oxford University Press. Prasad anthologizes Indian English poetry. There are many others, Pritish Nande, you name people, they're all anthologizing, all poets, anthologizing poetry around the same time, Indian English poetry around the same time. Salim P. Radina, number of poets were anthologizing poetry around that time. And then Arvind Krishna Maratha does the next Oxford anthology. What they do is, they call them all anthologies of Indian poetry. And that's always been interesting, because they made the assumption, that they were aware or not, that English represents India. So you talk about anthologies of Indian poetry, and they don't have translations in them from various Indian languages. They only have English poetry. And it's always struck me as curious that even, when they were aware of it, they still did not address the issue. Arvind Maratha wrote a scathing review of Prasad, if I'm not wrong, if I remember correctly, that is. He went on to then do his own anthology and still called it Indian, after having, critiqued Prasad for using Indian for Indian English. So I think the hesitation was to say Indian English. So they'd rather say Indian poetry. But the English was left out completely. So it seemed almost as if English represents India. The only language in which you can write India was English, which of course irritates the hell and still irritates the hell out of writers in various Indian languages, because they keep feeling that even now English is represents India outside India, right? So, and they feel, how can English represent India? So it's an interesting thing. And for most Indian writers who write in English, regardless of whether they write poetry or prose, this is a question they have to engage with and address, because if you live in India, you're bound to be asked this every now and then by people of different age groups. It's not as if the oldies ask you, the old fogies ask you, even the youngsters, even everybody around you asks you, but you write in English, right? So why don't you write in some other language? What makes you write in English? And of course, you give the same answer, which they themselves would give, which is that you write it in the language you're most comfortable in, full stop, right? And you feel most competent in. But the other side is that very often, very English, very Angrez professors in India will keep pointing out how incompetent we are in English. So it's an interesting kind of engagement that we have with the English language. And interestingly, Professor Hamid has a poem on this. But more than that, Jaydeep calls his book, and it's an interesting title. It says Explorations in English Poetry, Musings by Indian Poets. Explorations in English Poetry. I'm 100% certain that most Indians who pick up this book think it's about British poetry. And I'm sure they're all stunned when they read it and they say, it's about Indian English poetry. So earlier, they dropped the English and called them Indian. Now Jaydeep drops the Indian and calls them English. And it's an interesting trajectory. And I want us to think about it. I'm not critiquing Jaydeep's book. I'm not talking about his title, because it's an interesting title and something that we must all engage with. Jaydeep, of course, talked about why he calls it this. And I'm sure he'll say it again. And but it's an interesting thing that he does. And that's what I want to point attention to, how it goes from Indian to English. And the first time the English is dropped, the second time the Indian is dropped. And anybody who's taught Indian English poetry, I've talked about people who write, but anybody who's taught Indian English literature or Indian English poetry has had to grapple with very many issues, from the idea of the post-colonial and how long is that term useful to you to talk about Indian English poetry, to the idea that Indian English poetry can be taught in isolation in this country rather than in a matrix of Indian literatures in translation, right? Would you not be teaching Indian English as part of Indian literatures? And so when you do a book, when you talk about it, would other languages not come in? Because other languages come into Indian English literature anyway. There is no way you can live in India and write about India without an awareness of other languages that impinge on one. So is there a give and take? Is there a reading? Are there interventions with and engagements with other languages? Or are there not? Are there not? These are interesting questions to ask again. Right. I said I will not talk about Janie Sarangi's book in detail or about Professor Hamid, because I'm sure they're going to be talking. But I found one which Jaydeep will tell us, fact missing. I did not know whether these articles have been commissioned for this book or had they been written at various points of time and put together. So I didn't quite get that when I was looking at the book, because some of the articles and some of the terms that they used sounded to me a little dated. So I was wondering about this, that when was this actually written? The first article, chapter starts off by talking about Indo-Anglian poetry. Now, who calls it Indo-Anglian poetry? Right. So was it being used I'm not being it. I was being used as a specific thing for us talking about certain kind of poets who wrote at a particular point of time and who thought of themselves as Indo-Anglian, whatever that meant. I didn't. So these kind of questions that arise because his introduction is wonderful. It's a chapter by itself, and so does it. But what it doesn't do is to put these chapters in, contextualize them for us. So it's a very interesting book and worth a read, and should be on every library shelf. And I'm happy to be here at the lodge. And back to Professor Hamid. And I know Jaydeep told me not to read from his poetry. He said, Hamid sir, khud pad lenge. You read your own poetry. So
Yes, sir. We'll be waiting for your poems.
So I will read
yes.
one poem just now, which kind of addresses some of these issues about English and Indian languages in a very short poem, and something that I think some of you would have heard before. It's called Growing Old. So it addresses, in a sense, the concerns that Professor Hamid addresses too, but differently. Growing old. In English, he became someone's old man early. It took time in his Indian languages. But as he grew older and more respected, not in English, English kept him young and with it. His wisdom he gained in years, but not in English. Alzheimer's stared at him in English. Soon he realized he was growing old and unwanted in English, as also not in English. So I'm going to end with this poem, and I don't know if I crossed the time or if you should.
No, sir, of course not. It was wonderful and very meaningful also, because today we are going to launch the book of poems of Sir Hamid, that is Alchemy of Aging. And in this tune only, I'm just going to read the poem, The Alchemy of Aging. Let's just hear it. There, that is no country for old men, wrote Yeats, perforce sailing to Byzantium, a tattered coat upon a stick, frustrated by watching young men and women in one another's arms. With the soul, clap its hands and sing, while I pray all day, seeking forgiveness of God for sins amorous, when the evening, the setting sun with all its colors is so beautiful. The matured mind, detached, manufactures refined fantasies teasing the limits of desire, senses more sensitive, decoding voices touch, odors intoxicate, sights catalyze ideas, not the wasteland of Eliot where caresses are unreproved or if undesired. This is Byzantium, where there's not only the aesthetics of art, but the art of aging. Just see the art of aging gracefully, beautifully, sensually. No abstractions or the promise of paradise, but what is within the realm of possibility right here. Isn't it beautiful? I think it's perfect. This alchemy of aging, the book itself, the alchemy word, it toys with the theme. It's a wonderful. I would ask
Yeah,
a chief guest. Yes, sir.
I think JB sir has not completed his talk, so I think
No,
he's to
I
finish.
will invite him, of course, sir.
I
With
have
the
completed.
launch, I
I was just
know.
going to say thank you, and I was
No, no,
going
you
to
have
No,
to
the
finish.
books.
I perfectly know he hasn't. We won't be leaving him so soon, sir. With the launch, I'll be again asking JVC, sir.
Okay.
Just
Yes,
DJ.
JVV, sir, please,
DJ.
with your permission, sir, we need you to virtual launch this book. And everybody, please kindly, whoever has this book with them, yes. Thank you so much, sir, for this virtual launching.
Yes. So wonderful. I
Yes.
recommend it to everybody.
I was only because since JVG sir was talking about age, I took this opportunity to match this one. And we are not going to leave. He's our mentor. He's so much wanted. So, sir, please, please, wonderful poem. I know we are waiting. Everybody's
No,
waiting.
no, I've
Please.
actually finished. I was just finishing that
No,
poem.
sir.
No, listen to me, please.
Okay.
I'd taken my 12 minutes and I was going to say, thank you very much for inviting me for the launch. And I was going to hold up the 2 books, but we've done one now. And I was going to wish them all the best in the world of academia, of literature, of poetry, of the world in general. And that's what I was going to do. So thank you.
Dil mange more, sir. Okay, thank you so much, sir. But we'll be coming back to you again and again for your mentorship for everything. So now I would like Hamid, sir, Professor Hamid, to please come up. As Hamid sir needs no introduction. Hamid sir is, as you all know, a retired professor from the Department of English, Kumail University, and he's from Almora. Born and brought up in Lucknow, and having lived in the hills of Kumaun for 4 decades, he stands at the confluence of 2 cultures. He is a translator and a poet. This is the 5th collection of poems. Yes, Hamid, sir.
Thank you so much, Aditi. First of all, I would like to welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I would like to welcome all my fellow poets from Australia and India. Professor GJV Prasad, I must thank for accepting our invitation to be the chief guest and for the kind words he has said about my poetry. He has always been my last book of poems, The Ontology of Desire. He also was there for the book launch. So I'm very grateful to him. Thank you so much, Professor Prasad, for being with me, for standing by me. And Rob Harle, who wrote the introduction of my last book. Thank you so much once again for being here with us today and to see you live online. And Professor Sarangi for organizing this book launch. He had always been, he has always encouraged me, in a way, to write poetry. He has always, stood by me. Thank you so much, Professor Sarangi. Sudarshan ji for publishing my book. And one thing, Mr. Subroto Bondo, who was to be here and who had written a blurb for my this book, he is ill. He has had an attack of arthritis and won't be able to join us. So we pray for his speedy recovery. Now let me begin with the poems. Aditi has already read the title poem of my book, so I need not read that, I think. In this stipulated time, I will read as many poems as possible. So I will begin with the poem Hell. They are short poems, so I won't be taking too much time with them. Do good deeds, they warn, lest you burn in hell, roasted rather eternally, but never eaten. So explained Dante in his celebrated tour to Inferno. But what about our passions, greed, lust? Don't they burn, roast you like barbecue? Barbs verbal, arrows sentimental, whips emotional, and that hammer on the head called love. What would you call them? And hell is other people, Sartre said. You are kicked, pinned down, roasted and toasted, eaten with salt and pepper. Then what's left for that beyond, if it at all exists? The next one is nostalgia. Isn't it an escape, this nostalgia? Its overdose paralyzes, buries us where roots are in mindless stupor. Like in winter, no leaves, no flowers. Living in the past, alienated from the present, cynical about everything, as though it was all rosy in Zion, for which they weep by the rivers of Babylon. Writers talk about both joy and sorrow, the disillusionment with the past. Unlike those for whom nostalgia is all, let them be buried with their memories. Now I will come to this poem, Lonely Hearts. It is one of my favorites. I don't know if you like it. It's on aging too. In the arms of loneliness, I feel my aging bones give way to a strange yearning for lonely relationships. Rudderless ships not searching for anchor, but floating aimlessly, restlessly towards no destination. Exchange of sidelong glances, a little conversation, aroused minds in tired bodies that have waited too long for the right response to fantasies melting away into nothingness. Let us copulate in this void to reignite lost passions, lost hope of lonely hearts, aroused minds in the darkness of silence, two bodies condoling each other to orgasm in the arms of loneliness. Now I will read this one poem on COVID-19. Its title is Socially Distanced Love. It's a return to the days of yore, the old movies. In the Hindi movies, this used to be the Bollywood movies. This used to be the usual thing in the 60s and 50s. It's a return to the days of yore, the old movies, no premarital sex, no postmarital either, but just the kiss, the ultimate bliss behind a tree, symbolized by two flowers touching each other, assisted by the breeze. The only difference now, not even a kiss, but Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, email, where one may reveal all from next door or 1,000 miles away without a touch. Yes, we'll wear masks when we meet, sanitize each other as foreplay, and reach ecstasy with care under controlled conditions. After all, life goes on. Professor Prasad talked about the ghazals. This, for my Australian friends, the ghazal is a Persian and Urdu form basically. It was there in Arabic also, but basically Persian and Urdu, which we follow, in which each couplet has an independent entity, subject thematically independent, but bound together by a rhyme scheme, refrain and rhyme. The first couplet consists of refrain in both the lines, and in the other couplets, it is the second line. The last couplet usually has the poet's name. So, Agha Shahid Ali, the celebrated poet, asked everybody, especially the American poets, to write ghazals in English with this formal rhyme scheme and rather formal structure. So, inspired by him, I must say, I will read out two ghazals with your permission. The first is Rainy Day. When my time is over, please let me know. Aditi, please.
No, sir, please continue.
Some make savings for a rainy day. This first couplet is called Matla in Urdu, and the last is Makta, containing the poet's name. Some make savings for a rainy day, Others sing and dance on a rainy day. He looks longingly at the drizzle outside, but for fear of ridicule, can't dance on a rainy day. Her clothes clung to her curvaceous body. What can one do except watch on a rainy day? A storm raged outside, another inside. Desire, longing, lust multiplies on a rainy day. He listened absently to the priest's sermons on abstinence, while Ghalib's yearning for wine echoed on a rainy day. On mountain roads, I live in the mountains. On mountain roads, a downpour can be deadly. A rolling boulder crushed five in a car on a rainy day. The farmers rejoice, but the homeless lament. They have no place to sleep on a rainy day. Hamid loves the sound of rain on the window pane. It stirs strange yearnings in him on a rainy day. Now, just a couple more. Another ghazal, since Professor Prasad seems to like my ghazals. It's go to hell. Do good things they preach, otherwise you will go to hell. If you enjoy yourself here, you will after death go to hell. She enticed him using all tricks to ensnare him, but after having her fill, she told him, go to hell. Now this is about terrorists. He dreamt of hurs. Hurs are beautiful women in paradise, promised in paradise to the faithful Muslims. I don't believe in them, but that's how it is. He dreamt of hurs while spraying bullets indiscriminately. They had warned him, if he doesn't, he will go to hell. Now, Professor Prasad may agree with me on this because we have had experience of various vice chancellors. Vice chancellors are usually such pricks, no doubt about that. Many times exasperated, we wished but couldn't say, go to hell. He always wanted to walk into the unknown, unravel mysteries, be free, let the world go to hell. After surrendering to temptations, one eventually becomes a saint. Saint Augustine did that, although sexual morality may go to hell. What's all this bunkum about heaven and hell, Hamid? Don't get on my nerves, he tells them. Just go to hell. So the last one, there is silence. This is another ghazal. When I look deep inside my heart, there is silence. In my room, the walls, the door, there is silence. I have spoken too much, too long all my life. Now I wish to go to a place where there is silence. In the middle of a flame, there is darkness burning. When I talk to myself agitatedly, there is silence. In prosperity, his house was always abuzz with activity. In adversity, wherever he looks, searches, there is silence. A devastating beauty is always surrounded with admirers. But when her charm wanes, all around there is silence. I have played with words, sound, beats, composed poetry. Now in the evening of my life, in my poems too, there is silence. You have lectured too much, Hamid. We are all fed up. For my students, you have lectured too much, Hamid. We are all fed up. For God's sake, stop this nonsense. We wish there is silence. I think that would be fine, or should I read another? It's
Yes,
up to you.
please. Yes, sir, continue.
No, if you tell me to continue, I'll keep continuing.
We are enjoying, very down to earth.
So I will read out. Would you like to listen to a serious poem on this terrorism?
So whatever you think, right?
This is about terrorism, abstinence. On the steed of abstinence, he gallops, paradise in his mind, who's waiting with open arms to embrace, rub their ample bodies on his, and each attending to some erogenous zone on his body. Wearing a suicide jacket, machine gun in hand, hatred in his heart, he showers bullet on infidels. Indiscriminately, special target women, educated, independent, fashionable, but less scantily dressed than the hoods he imagines. Women to be under strict parda, illiterate serfs of men. Why? Only in paradise. Happiness in spilling blood. The more the killings, the more the ejaculation. When he blows himself up, the piece carrying his penis and scrotum mounts up to paradise. Erect for the waiting hoods, eternal splendor lust, which ejaculata retarda eternal. Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir. Extremely good, extremely well done. And we
Thank
wish
you.
success of this book, sir. I have gone through each of your poems. They are wonderful. And it's very down to earth. It's very modern. Even today's students, your students will be loving all these poems because we can relate to it so much, sir. Wonderful. Okay,
Thank you.
now since we are so happy, we have so many poets from around the world with us, from Australia, from Canada, and obviously from India, and we are very glad this galaxy of stars, they are here for these two book releases. We have released one book and we are continuing with the other one, which is Explorations in English Poetry, Musings by Indian Poets. Is a treasury of rich critical scholarship on some of the most significant voices in the canon of Indian English poetry. It brings together the work of some of the most well-known academicians of the time. So we are waiting for this book. We are waiting for this book, and as Sumanyu Satpathy has written, I'll just read this line. This collection of essays is an invaluable addition to the body of critical literature that props up the academic study of the ever-growing corpus of Indian poetry in English. The carefully chosen pieces in the volume, addressing a wide variety of questions, are by both experienced hands and budding talents in the field and have been competently edited by the prolific poet critic Dr. Sarangi. Now, I would invite Dr. Sudarshan K. Cherry as well as G.J.V. Prasad, both of whom are so very important for this book release. Sudarshan Ji Kerry also doesn't need any introduction. He is the CEO of Authorpress, the publishers of scholarly and creative books, which through his efforts has reached an extensive range of 170 countries. A reticent professional, he has published writers from all over the world and is an ardent believer of evolve and emerge for universal oneness. So yes, Sudarshan Cherry sir, would you say two words before we launch along with JGV Prasad sir this book?
Not two words. It is not possible for me to two words because clubbing two eminent professors along with the world literary netizens, I will take 2 minutes rather, if you'll permit.
Sir, 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
No, I need only 2 minutes. It is my privilege to take part in this release function of two significant books. Professor S.A. Hamid's poetry collection, The Alchemy of Aging, Alchemy of Evolving, and Professor Jaydeep Sarangi's collection of critical essays, explorations in English poetry, the phenomenal, poetry, musings of Indian poets, both published by Authorspress in 2021. Today we are gathered here to celebrate poetry on behalf of Authorspress. I would like to express my warm welcome to you all. A good poetry is like a lovely piece of music or a fabulous painting that takes you out of yourself into something beyond you. We don't read or write poetry because it is cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, a race which is filled with passion. Veteran poet Professor Sayyid Ali Hamidi is known for his naturalness, cosmopolitan vision, and loving heart. With his poetry, he experiences life and attempts to search for the philosophical sense of the quest for meaning. The Alchemy of Aging is a collection of Professor Hamid's new poems, owing much to the leisure post-retirement as well as the stay-at-home condition arising out of COVID-19. With his wit and sarcasm, he makes no bones about critiquing the patriarchal society where class and gender hierarchies continue to oppress those on the margins. English poetry in India has become a significant self-sustaining tradition with ever-growing international readership. The contemporary Indian English poets have earned their recognition through sheer merit and resourcefulness without an expiry date. Edited and collected by Jaydeep Sarangi, Explorations in English Poetry, Musings of Indian Poets encapsulates the contemporary Indian voices within India and abroad. It aims to encourage readers and researchers to explore further and discover the rich heritage that exists in contemporary Indian poetry in English. It is a modest survey of trends in contemporary Indian poetry in English. Professor Hamid and Professor Sarangi both are very good friends and guides to Authorspress. We are fortunate to have immeasurable encouragement from both the professors. And in our journey, my sincere appreciation and regards to both of them for their remarkable contribution to the literary world. I wish all the success for their future ventures. Poetry has a power to heal. It has a power to re-enchant the world. Poetry helps us to live from our center and keep us on track of transformation by following the path of emotion, of sensitivity, and of the imagination. Poetry is a vehicle for transmitting human knowledge and values. A sense of good and evil, history is the great deeds of men and women, ancient traditions and links with nature. It is my hope that we recognize the intrinsic human value of poetry in our lives, that despite the trials and tribulations of the outside world, we can all gather strength and calm from verses. It is indeed very important for poets to be leaders and to freely express what they have their own minds in their hearts, and especially to try through their words and art to improve the social situations. The poet can express truth that will survive and speak out the generations after generations. I would like to thank all who participate in this doorless room. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Prasad sir, Prasad sir, would you say a few words about release of this book before we finally virtually release this book? Yes, sir.
I think I already spoken about the book, so I'm happy to launch it.
Okay, okay, sir.
The book.
Okay, okay. So, sir, please give permission and yes. So, the virtual release of Jaydeep sir's wonderful book. Yes. Okay, wonderful. So, Jaydeep sir doesn't need any introduction. He's the main core person who is binding each of us. We are here only for him. We are all friends and relations of Sarangi sir, because poetry is that which is binding us. He is a widely anthologized poet, translator, and critic. His principal, Nivalipur College, Kolkata, the president, Guild of Indian English Writers, Editors, and Critics, and the vice president of Executive Council of Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library, Kolkata. So, sir, a few poems of your own, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a wonderful occasion to meet all of you. And to start with Professor Jaydeep Prasad, who is an inspiration for long time for me. And thank you, JJB sir, for being there always. And we are following you closely. And you are inspiring in the field of literature as well as through your personality. And you are motivating us always. Thank you. Thank you, JJB sir. It's an honor that you are here and you are always here for all academic reasons. And as a person, we always look up for you. Uh, Thank you, Professor Hamid Saab, and the Alchemy of Aging, where the only meditation that the poet knows is poetry. Alchemy in words. Juices flow effortlessly, and this collection of poems clears the mind. I read your poems again and again. We are friends for a long, long time, and we know each other for a long, long time. And your poems are like, reading and visiting the Himalayas again and again. It's a call from the heart. You are a soul maker. Thank you so much. I thank Sudarshan Ji, the publisher, in the modern form P. Lal, and P. Lal's residence in Kolkata. And my flat in South Calcutta is just 1 kilometer away from P. Lal's residence, real place. So Authorspress is promoting, giving platform to voices for criticism, as well as for poetry, short stories, fiction. And it's like building a new nation, a nation of hope through literary exercises. More power to you, Sudarshan Ji. More power to you. I thank my long-term co-associates and associates with whom we have worked a lot in partnership projects, poetry connections between India and Australia. We have 7 books together by myself and Rob Harle from Lismore now, New South Wales. Thank you, Rob, for gracing the occasion. And you are a familiar face in this part of the country. And thank you, all good wishes from the Ganges in the city of joy, Kolkata, and from the heart of India. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nathalie. And Nathalie, we have worked a lot in partnership projects and many volumes together. And we all know that Nathalie's grandfather was the patron of great W.B. Yeats. And it was a great occasion to inform you all. So she is carrying a great legacy for our literary academia. Thank you, Nathalie. And it's a wonderful occasion to meet you. Janie, wonderful to meet you. Your poems moved hearts, and thank you so much. And all Australian friends, thank you so much. We remain good friends. We remain good friends for the sake of poetry too. And poetic bridges will build up new horizons for nation building and relationships among the nations in future for global citizenship. Thank you. We are the members of Global Citizens for Poetic Connections. Thank you, Ranu, for being there always. You inspire me as well as the academia in different parts of the country and the world. I thank Sudhir Arora, who is a relentless worker and researcher on Indian writing in English, and is very often quoted as one of the prominent critics of Indian writing in English. Relentlessly, he is working and long-standing relationship, friendship, and academic partnership. I thank everyone present today, the coordinators, Madhu, Aditi, Bashudhara, all participants, and Kavita Ezekiel, great daughter of greatness in Ezekiel, were present here. And I know that all of us can build a society of hope by contributing original productions through creative criticism, as well as in literary productions, creative writings, which is the aroma of the soul for a nation of hope, for the universe of hope. And I think there is a great renaissance, a love for poetry culture in India and of course Australia, Canada, and Europe as well. So as I go back to what Professor Prasad has raised some very pertinent questions, my title of the book is Deliberate Explorations in English Poetry. English is here language term. It is not a community term. English is language term. Because if we look into this, the collections and the essays that has been Anglo-Indian, then Vivekananda coming to the modern times, and there is a chronological flow of the articles selected. And the last article is Nissim Ezekiel's daughter's review of how she has witnessed her father, and in a span after 50 years or 55 years of time. So a time to change, that is in 52 collection by Ezekiel, there is a great growth of Indian writing in English. And how long shall we'll be tagging English writing as Indian as a kind of adjective or a classifier, I will say. So because it's a time that we have 3-4 generations of English language on our baggage, and we have seen confident English users and no more the anxiety. The anxiety phase is over. The anxiety of Indianness is a matter of past. Strong, bold Indians use English as one of their languages. So when we are not considering translation, we are only focusing on English writings by Indians. And why can't it be called as English poetry? If Mr. Wordsworth's poetry is English poetry, of course, Jayanta Mahapatra's poetry is English poetry. And it is very interesting, and it won't be, I think, it won't sound odd in a decade or time. English poetry in Britain or English poetry in America will also include writers by poets from India. So without any categorical tagging, Indian writings, because we are a global fraternity and language is a personal identity choice, identity marker. So the language I am comfortable with is the language I use. So I'm not referring to Kamala Das, not referring to Niranjan Mahanti, not referring to replacing language in Craig Billas Crop's reference. It's a language of course, the language I'm comfortable with. So explorations in English language, English poetry is a poetry written in English, and there is a subtitle, Musings by Indian Poets. I hope in my next edition, I'll drop Indian in the subtitle also, Musings by Indian Poets. So the journey is a long journey, and 3-4 generations of English studies, and we have seen confident English poets by the schoolgoers, by the college goers, university goers in India. And I am very happy to see in different groups and poetry reading programs and regular events, poetry meetings and like that, our culture has grown up in a sense that in every weekly adda, weekly Sunday spending times or Saturdays evenings, we pass time by reading poetry in English. And even our children, our small children, they recite their own poems and they come with in confident English language poetry. And that is unique with, and that has the hues of India. So my crow is very prominent, and it is colorful, and it is full of the flavor of the hearts of India. When we are not considering translation, but I really think that translation is the heart of India, but when we are excluding translation, is English poetry. And thank you for the very important, pertinent contributions and inputs by all of you to the book. And I really look forward to meet you again and again for mutual inspirations and for taking the legacy of poetry to further heights. Thank you all. Back to the coordinators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Loved your words and waiting for your next book also. So now from India, we are moving to Australia and no other than the famous Rob Harle. Rob Harle is a poet, artist, and reviewer. His work is published in journals, anthologies, online, and in books. He is on the editorial board of a number of international art and literary journals, including Leonardo. His work concerns the techno-metamorphosis of humanity. Welcome, sir. Please.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I'd just like to do a thing we do in Australia, that's acknowledging the Indigenous custodians of the land. This is particularly relevant to Janie and Nathalie and myself, because we live in the Northern Rivers area of New South Wales, which is the Bundjalung Nation and the Widjabul people. So we're honoured to be here in their land. It's an interesting story how Jaydeep and I got to meet each other. There was a journal in India called Rupkatha Journal, and they had a call for papers and artwork, and I submitted some work, and the editor, Taran, liked the work and published it, and he suggested that I should meet Jaydeep and Sunil Sharma, which I did, and I hate to say it was through Facebook, but that was okay. And then our friendship and working together has grown since then over, well, perhaps 10 years. So then I've done some anthologies, fiction and poetry with Sunil, and they were published by Authorspress books, bless them. And then Jaydeep and I have done 7 anthologies together, which were published by Cyberwit. And I'm just so grateful that for those 2 publishers, because that would not really happen in Australia. It's a wonderful association with India that support poetry and support artists, whereas we've got to fight pretty hard in this country to get anything published, as Nathalie and Janie know only too well. So that's about the story, the way that Jaydeep and I have met, and we get on famously, and we'll probably be doing some more projects together. And through that, I've met a lot of Indian poets, Hamid particularly, as he said. I wrote the introduction to one of his books, and we've got a nice working relationship as well. So thank you there. That's about it from me. I'll just read 2 poems if you like, and then hand it over to somebody else. The first poem is called Vox Caldera Choir. This area we live in is an ancient volcano, and the rim of that volcano is called a caldera. It's absolutely massive. The centrepiece of that is an Aboriginal icon called Mount Warning, or the true name is Wollumban. And a group of people in this area formed a choir, and they call it the Vox Caldera Choir. This is the poem. Ave Christi Emelit rises, crystal voices carry us away. The choir exquisitely sweet, no one notices the cold. No one notices the drab hall interior. Cut to Bruckner's Christus Factus A. Sonorous voices in perfect harmony warm the cold winter afternoon. The small audience in rapture flowing with the Caldera choir. Trio Continental enter. Opus 352 by Bone. Cascades warmly like diamonds in the sunlight. Violin, piano, cello thrill the audience to a hallowed place. Something sacred has happened. Entranced with these timeless masterpieces, written some 500 years ago, I reflect on how much we've lost, but feel a tenuous contentment realising not all have carelessly ignored the past, mindlessly ignoring this universal greatness. Thank you. This one's called At the Roundabout. I don't know if you have roundabouts in India, but in Lismore we've got thousands of the things, and they put them in an intersection rather than traffic lights. So this is called At the Roundabout. Sitting at the roundabout, my thoughts go round and round. The ever-watchful plastic horse guards the saddlery door when she was free to run. Her houndstooth blanket flaps, tearing at the chill winter breeze. Nearby, an ageing painter dabs green and yellow ochre, a new face for an old building. A nun scurries into the watchmaker's. I wonder why she hurries. I ponder why she watches time. Perhaps her holy marriage is marked in seconds, her faith measured in hours or days. The fragrance of the warm bread rising from the hot bread shop dances on the cool breeze. Beside me, the virtuosos, hopeful, swell the conservatorium walls. They compete discordantly, oblivious to the raucous traffic chorus. An angel from hell, leathery, thunders by, his black chrome horse fuming, angry. A mum with child encapsulated pedals round and round on an aged and rusting bicycle. Bits dangle from it like the dangling thoughts, lost, of the silent shoppers. People stare at me. Suddenly their private thoughts stop. What is he writing about? Me? I stare back blankfully, then move my thoughts around onto the roundabout and go round and round. Thank you.
Lovely poem, sir. I was expecting more and more. It's so graphic, as if visually we can see what you are writing there. Wonderful. It's very touching and very to the point, and it's visually appealing. Everything is, no doubt, sir, told about you. Yes, Harle, sir, it's very good one. Okay, from Australia, let us come back to India a bit. I would like to request Ranu Uniyal ma'am, and she also doesn't need introduction. She's a professor of English at Lucknow University. She's the author of 3 poetry collections, the most recent being The Day We Went Strawberry Picking in Scarborough in 2018. Her poems have been translated into Hindi, Malayalam, Urdu, and Uzbek. She is also a founding member of PAISAM, a daycare center for people with special needs in Lucknow. Over to you, Ranu ma'am.
My very warm greetings to all the distinguished guests, poets, friends. And it's really nice to see Bob for the first time, because I think we are meeting for the second time, but we've worked over the last few years together in the sense that you were a part of that anthology, which was brought out by Jaydeep and you, Australian and Indian poetry. And then I'm really happy to see that some of my senior teachers are also here. Professor Prasad, my dearest friend, Professor Hamid, who belongs to Lucknow, Madhu is here, and Dr. Arora is here. It is not easy to express what poetry does to the human heart. It binds and heals. It opens and unlocks the recesses of the human soul. And in times of fear, it makes you fearless. In sickness, it heals. And in health, it nourishes. It is there to stay, and it stays to go, and it goes to return. Time seeks poetry, and poetry waits for time. The Alchemy of Aging is one such book by Professor Hamid that probes and problematizes the question of living and the alchemy of aging with the final thud in the arms of loneliness. The other book, which I have not had the privilege of reading, Explorations in English Poetry by my dear friend Jaydeep Sarangi, It is right. And what he says, rightly said, it is time for us to stop being apologetic about our use of English. Time for us to read, recite, and relish poetry in all its forms. And I'm going to read one poem which takes up this very issue of language. And the title of the poem is English in Me. English is as big as a mustard seed in my conscience. I have made a living all these years, read and chewed, and sometimes failed to digest its embryonic juices. Constantly I'm being told you know nothing. Here is a pursuit without pauses or commas, jotting off hyphens and sipping all the prepositions with ums and hos. My Desi friends make fun of my Sanskrit seeped in accented English. They say, Nimbu pani as an ideal drink loses thrill unless sugar and salt are adequately mixed. And my English friends, with some disdain, forgive my sins, for they know she knows not. Heavenly Father has always had that final laugh. English is the language I make love in. English is the language I have used for my living. English is the language I travel in mind, body, and soul. English is all I could never be. English is all I will never be. Fuck English. Fuck it now. Embrace English. Embrace it now. Thank you.
Extremely well done, sir. Well done, ma'am. Ma'am, another poem?
Okay. Since we are celebrating this week as World Autistic Week, so here is a poem for a son with special needs, and the title of the poem is Holding On. I have you gaping with mouth wide shut, your glasses indifferent to the glare. I follow you. I have words searing my ears to tongue. I wish there was little to spout. I have a drop of rain that lies frozen in a sea of fire. Despite the storm, I prefer quiet. I have you still in my arms. Anaphylaxis, they say. Unfettered, I know. Your heart beats inside me. I have you, my little sparrow, chirping in the twilight. This beauty is enough to keep me sane. I have you as my last morsel, hungry but content. I pick you at leisure. I have you as my only shroud in full view, and I am left without a cover. I have you as my heir, bent with the burden of my damaged psyche, full of kindness. I have you in me. Imperfect rhythms, whispers swell inside the belly. We dance together. Thank you.
Very powerful, ma'am. Wonderful. Okay, now over to Madhu, my co-anchor. Please, Madhu, take over.
Wonderful poems, Ranuji and Rob. And thank you, Ranuji, for writing the blurb for my book.
Really wonderful, really wonderful.
Professor Dr. Sudhir Arora, thank you so much for being
Namaste, sir. Namaste.
for the interview that appears in my book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madhu, we can't hear you. Madhu, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Madhu. We can't hear you, Madhu.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Okay. There was a problem with the earpiece anyway. So we continue with the program. I'm really mesmerized at all the discussions and the poems that are being read. So we continue now. Again, we take a giant leap from India to Canada. Kavita ma'am, are you with us?
She has
Ma'am,
left.
Kavita Ezekiel? Yes.
She has left.
Okay. I welcome Kavita Ezekiel ma'am again. She needs no introduction. She is a doctor.
She is not here. She is not here.
She's not here. Okay. Kavita Mishra is here. She's somebody else. Okay, so we again move ahead with our friend from Australia. 1 second. Ma'am Janie Conway is here with us.
Yeah, I'm
Please
here.
Yeah. Welcome, ma'am. She has been on the creative world for a long time. I pay my respect and homage to her, and I have the privilege of introducing you, ma'am. Janie Conway enjoyed a career as a musician before turning to creative writing. She taught and coordinated the creative writing program at Southern Cross University for over a decade. She has been published in a range of journals and anthologies. Her novel, Beneath the Grace of Clouds, was published in 2010. A novel and song collection titled Another Song About Love was released last year. I have not met you, ma'am, before this, but I am waiting with a beating heart to listen to your poems. And if you have to say anything about these books. So over to Janie, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your introduction. I feel very honoured to be in such prestigious company and to be a retired writing teacher. I can know how it feels to be older and to have desires and have feelings and things as well. It doesn't stop. The older you get, it keeps going. And also the importance of poetry. But before I read, I will also acknowledge that I'm on the Wiyabul people of the Bundjalung Nation land, because it's very important to me to acknowledge that I'm actually on land of people who have never ceded their sovereignty. So basically on stolen land, if you like. So I feel it's important to say that. And on that note, I also, and on the importance of poetry, as part of the work I've been doing for the last 15 years, I've been going to the Thai-Burma border and teaching creative writing in women's writing workshops with displaced people from Burma. I've always worked with translators. So it's been quite interesting for me to hear about all the different kinds of English and the layers of English, because when I work with these women, I always work with a translator, which is quite interesting for a whole lot of reasons. And one of them is that often the translator will be translating into Burmese, but also into other ethnic languages like Karen and Chin and Shan languages. While I was there teaching a few years ago, I heard about these women who were poets who had been imprisoned. And while they were in prison, they had their pens taken away from them, and any ability to write was taken away from them. And in order to keep their poetry going, what they did was put pinpricks in plastic bags. So the family would bring in food in plastic bags. They would put pinpricks of the poems in the plastic bags and give it to their family. Their family would take it out and then put ink on the holes in the plastic, and the words would come out, and they would publish the poems. So the poems kept going. And just recently, that's been so on my mind, because I read an article saying that with the recent incursions of the military in Myanmar, that they're coming for the poets. They're arresting a lot of people, but they're arresting the poets. So I thought, in honor of these people, I would read this poem that I wrote after hearing about those women and the pin pricking and the poems. It's called In Your Dreams. In your dreams, the words slip out between the straight iron bars and over the barbed wire prison walls. Passing machine gun sentinels in lofty turrets, they tumble into narrow streets and gather in town squares. Listen, listen, the words say to anyone with half an ear for freedom. Look, look, they cry, pointing at the prison wall that towers before them. There are innocents in there, guilty of nothing but dreams of peace and hope and harmony. But life in a crowded cell with nothing but the cloying closeness of cellmates and the stench of bucket toilets requires more than dreams. So you conjure whispered words into the late night pin pricking of plastic bags, while you plan the stealthy exchange with visitors and family who bring food and laughter and comfort and news of an outside world. As you clutch your pin-pricked words and the rustling plastic bag in the sweaty palms of your deception, a profusion of goodbyes hides the rushing of your heart's blood. And the words pass unwary guards, a smile, a nod, and they are on the streets, running down laneways, past brightly lit market stalls brimming with exotic fruit and salty fish, and beggar children with pining eyes, past the tea shop on the corner and the secret garden of delights where the scent of steel flowers from prison sways under a wretched darkening moon. There, under a harsh neon light, ink turns to pin-prick plastic into words on a naked page, and suddenly you are free. Like the stars that sparkle in a moonless sky, like the dawn that wakes the fighting peacock, like the sleeping citizens of the world as they greet the coming of a brand new day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so moving. I mean, this is something I had never heard of, the way you spoke about pin pricks on plastic bags. Poetry always finds a way. That's what kind of struck and then whatever you said, and the way you connected it to the situation in Myanmar is wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'm being there now. I can, yeah, now. So I've got time for one more short poem.
Yes, please, go ahead.
This is a particularly Australian poem. It's called Glenroy, but it's about the Glenroy in Scotland and its relationship to the Glenroy actually in Victoria. There's a place called Glenroy, which was founded by my Scottish ancestor. And I wrote this poem when I went to Glenroy in Scotland and thought about the Glenroy in Victoria, founded by my ancestors, because this is a place, it's the first time I had been to a place where I could feel the footsteps of my ancestors going back hundreds of years. It doesn't, if you're not Indigenous Australian, then you don't have that sense of the many centuries of going back, you know. It's becoming longer now, but and so it's kind of honouring that and also the Indigenous people of Australia. So it's called Glenroy. I sit on an ancient hillside, looking out across a landscape once inhabited by my ancestors, and feel the wrench of their departure. I walk on an old stone bridge and sense an ancient lover's kiss in the cool breeze that brushes my cheek. I hear whispered passions in the intensity of the rustling green leaves and the wind in my hair. I listen to the river gurgling through the glen and hear the laughter of young children at play. But there is no one here. Only black-faced sheep deemed more important than people by 18th century invaders. A bright red phone box made quaint by the mobility of the 21st century, and an empty hut its broken down walls reeking of loneliness and shattered dreams. Wait for me, I cry, as if they have gone somewhere, leaving me behind, and surely they have. 150 years after their leaving, I breathe my first breath in a crowded city, in another ancient land, so changed by the footsteps of my ancestors that it is hardly recognizable to the spirits of this, my birthplace. Forced to the edges of their country by the settlers and their sheep, they whisper to their descendants so they know their dreaming place. But I do not. Wait for me, I cry, for I do know I am mortal. But when I die, where will my spirit go? Thank you. That's in this.
Yeah, that was just wonderful. Means you
Great.
spoke about the feeling of alienation, isolation, wherever we might be as global citizens. We always yearn for our roots. Try to seek our identity out of that. Thank you so much, Janie. That was really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
After this, we have another very renowned poet and an old friend of our host today, Nathalie Buckland. Please, ma'am, unmute yourself. Nathalie Buckland, ma'am, please unmute yourself. Yeah, right side corner, the mic icon. Just click on that.
The red mic one, Nathalie. The red mic one down the bottom.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm a bit new to all this. First of all, I'd like to say how honoured I've been over this last few years to have had my poetry published in several collections of Australian and Indian poetry, and it's lovely to see all your faces and associate them with the people that I've heard about for so long. I chose a poem to read that is linked with the subject of aging, and also is topical in that it's to do with autumn coming on here and with the floods that we've been having in Australia. The title is a quote which you may recognise: "A fine and private place. Fire's busy lips nibble and taste the log, sizzle a spider, flare the sawdust, devour a dead leaf, make for the heartwood. A log has no memory of seed, seedling, sapling, of life as a forest giant, now felled, sliced, chopped, morphing to ash. But I remember, now as my body shows its age rings, its silvered foliage, so many abundant things, second, heavy with perfume and birdsong, babies' luscious limbs, summer's scorched paddocks, palomino pale, dying creek beds, skeletons crow-crested, westerlies dust, storm clouds building, lovers leaving, waiting for love, waiting for rain, explosion of water adorned with trees, cars, houses, buildings. The turning seasons roll me on in a tumultuous cycle to logs and winter fires, and finally to ash.
Thank you so much for that poem. But I would like to introduce you for many of us who would like to know more about you. Nathalie Buckland, ma'am, has written poetry since childhood. So we have our book today, Alchemy of Aging, and we have another very senior poet whom we are honored to listen to. That is Nathalie Buckland. She has migrated from UK to Australia, and her poetry and haiku has been published in several countries. Okay, ma'am, could we have another poem from you?
Yes, thank you. I have one about a daughter leaving home. The pressure of your arms around my neck becomes a memory, haze of diesel fumes. The pale oval of your face shrinks and is gone. The mantle of my love, torn by your careless fingers, goes with you, newly mended. In sunny times, the flowers are brighter, grass greener where you walk. But thunderclouds, ever-ready weapons, lurk on your shoulder. Lightning lingers on your tongue, teases your lips. I wish you zephyr winds, the balm of summer rain, and honeyed nectar. You go across the world, seeking the happiness to be found only within yourself.
Just wonderful, highly philosophical. We go about all over the place looking for happiness, which actually resides within ourselves. So that is what I call wisdom, which, just speaks through your poem. Okay, I would now request our chief guest, Sri Jaydeep Prasad. Sir, are you there? I think there are network issues. Sir?
I am here, but what do you want to request me to do?
Sir, to read a poem of yours, one or two.
I've done that. Thank you. Please call the next person.
Okay, sir. We could do with more. Then I will go ahead with, actually, this was a request from people to ask you to read. Okay. So we go ahead to our next poet, Professor Sudhir K. Arora, who is also our last of the panelists today. Yeah, Sir Sudhir K. Arora is an associate professor of English in Maharaja Harishchandra PG College, Moradabad. He has authored 100 articles and 12 books. And that speaks a lot about his creative and academic career. So without further delay, I request Sir Sudhir K. Arora to read a few poems and to say a few words. So where are you?
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir, but you're not visible.
Not visible?
Now you're visible. Okay.
Visible. Oh, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Namaste. I offer my respectful obeisance to the divine light present in all beings, my dear sisters and brothers. My deep respect to the chief guest, Professor Prasad, guest speakers, and poets who are gracing the virtual dais. Indian poetry in English is the sacred Ganga. This Ganga flows from Drozio, though Kashi Prasad Ghosh claims to be the first Hindu Bhagirath who brought this Ganga. In the beginning, Indian poetry in English was tagged as imitative as it followed the English model. It got worldwide recognition in 1913 when Rabindranath Tagore got the Nobel Prize for Gitanjali. With the passage of time, the Indian poets developed poetic forms and employed different styles. These styles varied from simple to compact via colloquial to suit the themes. Shashi Chandra Dutt, Michael Madhusudan, and the poets of Dutt family albums and Kishan Ghosh are some early pilgrims who began their poetic pilgrimage. Who can forget through Dutt and her ancient ballads and legends of Hindustan? Shri Aurobindo Ghosh has offered his vision of reforming the world through his poetry, particularly Savitri. Sarojini Naidu has offered her worship to this Ganga with her colorful Indian colors. If I talk of the post-independence, poets like Nisim Ijkil, Kamla Das, A.K. Ramanujan, R. Partha Sarthi, Arun Kolatkar, Shiv K. Kumar, K.K. Endaruwala, Jayant Mahapatra, they are mature enough to create their own idiom, which is Indian spirit and feeling. Now this Ganga of Indian poetry in English has adopted and adjusted to itself according to the new situation and new environment, some new trends, Facebook poetry, blog poetry, internet poetry, message poetry, WhatsApp poetry, Twitter poetry have appeared on the literary scene. Overall, this river of Indian poetry in English is rich and meaningful enough to offer a vision of life in the contemporary scenario. On the occasion of the book launch, here is the fusion of creation and criticism. Here is Professor S.A. Hamid, who with his creation, The Alchemy of Aging, is swimming in the river of Indian poetry in English. This is art of creation. And here is Professor Jaydeep Sarangi, who is attentively and critically exploring the movements and spirits of the poetry swimmers. This is criticism. Explorations in English poetry musings by Indian poets, which was first published in 2007, is now before us in its revised and enlarged edition. Its revised edition in 2021 is itself a story of its success and popularity. I really appreciate the way Dr. Sarangi has edited the book, the labor that he has put, and the pains that he has taken. I am sure that explorations in English poetry will prove to be an exploration for all the poetry lovers. If I talk of Professor Hamid, he is what he seems to be. His poetry is his reflection. The alchemy of aging is his journey from within. He is so honest in his expression that he does not feel any shame in using the sexual and erotic words. What he finds in the society is the reign of hypocrisy. Here, people live two lives, life of respectable persona and a life of the peeping Tom. He has made a lively sketch of cyber love with real words. He is a poet who reflects over reflections. He wants to enjoy the fruits of desire while adding space to the mind, color to life with the spice of desire. He uses the Urdu words and Hindi words, rather Hindustani words. He beautifully brings the Urdu poetry into English. His quarantine poetry is very remarkable. One can feel with him what he thinks and can think what he feels. This is his alchemy of aging, and this aging is really beautiful because he is a poet of desire. The desire awakens his destiny, and his destiny is to be an honest poet, true to his feelings, true to his desire, true to his thoughts, and above all, true to his Hindustani culture. Congratulations to both Professor Hamid's creation, The Alchemy of Aging, and Professor Sarangi's criticism, exploration in English poetry. Now, I am going to recite one of my poems, which is philosophical in nature. You and I are one, but seem to be two because of space that offers the stage for acting different roles which span many births. Without space, there is no you, there is no me, only being. A particle of being is being that is in you, that is in me. You and I are one, not two. Space ends, merging begins. Then you will merge with me, I will merge with you. All beings will merge with being, with being. Thank you very much. And I believe that I have completed within 5 minutes the time that you have given to me. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you, Sudhir, sir. You have not only been in time, you have also been very pertinent, very philosophical. We could all relate to your poems and we could have more of your poems. But anyway, we need to go ahead. I think with this, we come to the end of the panel discussion and the poetry
Please,
reading.
may I say one thing? Professor Sarangi hasn't recited a poem.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, we want to
you have
listen to
noted it.
his
Yes,
poem.
yes. I
We
invite
should
now.
request him.
Yes, on behalf of
Yes,
everybody's
sir.
request, I request Jaydeep Sarangi sir to recite some of his poems.
Thank you for this, for wonderful, wonderful poetry that we heard, and a wonderful talk by JB Saab that addressed and initiated and launched the book, and starting with Professor Hamid's poetry reading, and we heard some mellifluous voices from Australia and India. That's why I call poets are soul makers. Really made the afternoon, a morning and afternoon, and evenings, and in a different time zones. Really, it mattered a lot. Blind solitude. I go to sleep to forget about me. Living is showing, acting hour after hour. Faces are painted in daylight with colors of lie. My sleep has dreams of many, voices old and new, all are walking. I watch nocturnal birds crying for light, waiting, waiting faithfully. Sleep is my only self. Sleep is my only self. Blind solitude, river silence of my eyes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joydeep. Another one. We cannot do with only one of your poems.
Just a second. Dancing the light. Long wait after mute, sleepless waiting, silence gathered in both hands. When the storm is over, after an earthquake, a lonely mirror is weaving the net. Holding truth, flagging it up, reenacting an old play after a spell of love making. Trees wearing my spirit. The rice has got strange, strange wings. Memory carries me to strange lands. Wild as Nataraja, amongst a darkening cloud. Rain breaking everything, all laws, only wishes. I am held by new promises with colors of soft morning rain. My horse is waiting outside. Outside some uncertain faiths. Blue waters of oceans keep me a stranger in my own house. Someone is watching me, always from close quarters of life. I may leave this unseen beyond words. All wishes may go, but this chaotic flow of love, after this certain longing, my light has a home. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Great.
Totally mesmerized. Thank you so much, Joydipda, for not only being the cement to bring us all together, but for this wonderful event. You have really, I'm really honored and very happy to be part of it. So I would request anybody here, if anybody wants to read any of their poems, and we are hungry for more poetry reading actually. Anybody, I welcome all of you. those who are part of the audience also, if you want to read any of your poems. I think people are feeling shy after such a
No, no.
splendid
Actually,
reading.
everybody is mesmerized, Madhu. Everybody is mesmerized. Such a huge galaxy of stars.
Stars, exactly.
Yes, yes. And now we are not going to leave you also. Yes.
Oh,
As my co-host, she also doesn't need any introduction. You can see Madhu Sriwastav is an assistant professor of English at Bamanpukur Humayun Kobir Mahavidyalaya. She's an academic, critic, poet, translator, and reviewer with numerous publications. Recently, she has released her books, Trips, Climbs, Circles. So I would request Madhu, please.
okay, I'm honored. And I'm honored for another reason because I also have my publisher here who is none other than Sri Sudarshan K. He is the one who brought out my first book of poems, Trips, Climbs, Circles. So, okay, I take the opportunity to read from here. Can I read one or two poems, Aditi?
Madhu, as your name suggests, it's Madhu only. Please continue. We are
No,
really
no.
honored.
Okay, I'll read two short poems. The first one is named Mystic Moon Unites. This actually relates to the love in the time of social distancing when we are all, sort of separate in each of our own places. Mystic Moon Unites. The mystic moon hides behind the clouds. Rather, the clouds fold it in their embrace. Scattered, drifting light clouds spread. Allow flashes of moonshine. I drink deep the moonbeams bright, flickering the night sky. The neon lit city squabbles on, in box life it slumbers. I wander on my lone walk, full of the joy of life. Pulled out by the cosmic play of love and light, I feel you in my embrace. The caress of the wind at play, the moon unites us from afar. Shining on your window path, we view the same moon, are bathed in its silvery rays. We love and live apart, but with each other, time, space, and distance apart. The next poem is one poem. I think people have liked it a lot. Death of a House. This is on urbanization. Round the bend of the lane, rounded walls of the house stood naked. Its balcony, with seated sunshine, was removed to bare its windows. The bedroom with snuggle sleep, the family frame, held timeless memories. Passers-by glared into its privacy of the kitchen, where the joys of life were lovingly prepared. Bit by bit, the house was brought down, raped and mutilated mercilessly, as the insensitive world looked on, only to smirk on the death of a house, which was a boast of identity, a legacy, a home, a piece of time, cut down to its root to build a park, studded with ornamental flowers, to house people in boxes, alone, segregated, insensate. Thank you.
Wonderful, Madhu. Wonderful. Only
Thank you.
wonderful. Yes, now we are coming towards the end, and I'll hand over to Madhu. Yes, Madhu.
Yeah. Once again, it's me for the vote of thanks. I really don't know what to say because I'm also enthralled and mesmerized after the end of the event, which has, like Aditi has been saying again and again, a galaxy of stars from all over the world. And I have got to learn so much from this event. But anyhow, some formalities need to be done. I take this privilege and honor to thank everybody who has made this event a grand success. I thank our chief guest, Sri J.G.V. Prasad, for finding time from his busy schedule to grace the occasion. I thank.
It's GJV.
Oh, I'm sorry, GJV. Thank you for correcting me. I thank Sir G.J.V. Prasad for finding time from his busy schedule to grace the occasion. I thank Sri Sudarshan K ji for his presence and for bringing out such critical and creative books that add to the corpus of good books which can be referred to as good literature in the future. I thank Sir Said Ali Hamid for his collection of poems that stands out as a testimony and wisdom, as a testimony to his wisdom and craft in writing poetry. And I thank our main host of today, Professor Jaydeep Sarangi sir, for his collection of poems, for his collection of critical essays on poetry, and for reiterating the thought which was first invoked by Sir Prasad, that he has dropped the word Indian from his title, and he very well justified why he has dropped the term Indian English from the title, because it's, as I am one with him when he says that it's time, and as Ranu Uniyal ma'am also said the same thing, that we have been reading and writing English for 3 or 4 generations, so it's we no longer need to be apologetic for choosing the language. It's our very own language, and it's time we read, write, and relish writing poetry in English and reading and enjoying it. That's what we are doing right now. And as sir said, that we in India, we gather on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, we in his own association, of which I am a part, we do a lot of reading and writing poetry. We perform at IPPL, and I thank our friends from abroad who have really helped me into quite a few perspectives, new perspectives. As Robert Harle said, that people in India, artists in India, really help and support each other, in taking ahead the arts, the works. And I really got to learn from Janie and Nathalie. They are not only senior in years, I mean, they have such a lot of wisdom. Whatever, maybe I have not reached that stage of life, but I can always relate. Even I found a few of the poems, the names of the poems by Sir Hamid, which are common to my poems. So I think that the way people think is the same from whichever corner of the world we might be, and that's how we all belong to the same humanity, and poetry helps us become more human. It all helps us combine, it helps us unite, to once more realize that we are all the same wherever we might be, whatever color, whatever race, whatever ethnicity. And I'm really humbled when Janie says that she's in a stolen land, Australia. We are very much conscious of our colonized existence. Yet she yearns for her roots back in Scotland. It's so beautifully put by her, and yet she feels for the people who are struggling in Myanmar. It's a wonderful how people's thoughts travel. I would like to bring say a line in Hindi, very popular one, which says कि जहाँ ना पहुँचा रवि वहाँ पहुँचा कवि. Like where nobody can reach, a poet's thought can reach any part of the world, any corner of the world, any dark recess of the mind. So once more, I thank Professor Sudhir K. Arora. Very philosophically, he penned his thoughts, and we could all relate to it. He says, we are one. You might be separate, I might be different, but we are all one. It's so true. And I would like to thank once more our panelist, Rob Harle, Professor Ranu Uniyal ma'am, Kavita Ezekiel, I think she missed it over there, Janie Conway, Nathaniel Buckland, Sudhir K. Arora, and I would like to thank Professor Basudhara Roy Chatterjee, who is with us constantly, though she might not be visible. She has been our technical assistant, and she has contributed a lot to put up this program. And once more, I thank Jaydeep Sarangi sir, Professor Said Ali Hamid sir, and my co-coordinator Aditi Rudra for helping bring up this program. I'm Sorry if I have missed out on anything. And it was really wonderful being here. Thank you, sir, for making me a part of this venture. I think with that, we can call it a day. Hello?
Hello. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Sudarshan.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much. Thank you
you.
very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Prasad.
very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sudhir.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Thank you, Ranvi. Thank you,
Thank you.
Robert. Thank you, Janie. Thank you. Thank you, Sudhir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
It was wonderful meeting you. Wonderful. Thank you. Keep inspiring all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
to
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Goodbye.
and more power to poetry. Thank you.
Yeah, more
Thank you.
part of poetry. Keep us united. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you.